Good evening, Hare Krishna. Welcome to our conversations with Govinda Das on Twitter. On the eve of Republic Day, we will be discussing the concept of freedom of speech. Today, thanks to the social media, we tend to share our opinions freely. So, what is responsible freedom of speech? What is helpful freedom of speech? We will learn from Prabhuji. Prabhuji is an author. Uh, he's a thought leader, and he's an exponent of our wisdom text and its relevance to our present day life. Thank you very much for joining. If you would like to invite your family and friends who are on Twitter for this conversation, please tap on the blue icon at the bottom right of your screen and send a message to them, rather, tweet them. And on the bottom left of your screen, there is a mic icon. So if you wish to ask any question, you can tap on it and we will invite you into the conversation at an appropriate time. With these words, over to you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Prabhuji, can you unmute yourself and speak?
Okay, yeah. Hello. Yeah. I hope everybody is able to hear.
Yes, we can. Prabhuji.
So, yeah. Thank you for to come and speak on the subject of freedom of speech. Tomorrow, India is celebrating the Republic Day. As everybody knows, it's the day when our own constitution was implemented. So, it is called as Gana Rajya also. Gana Rajya, Republic. The word Republic, Gana Rajya, apparently they sound the same, right? So therefore we will try to analyze little bit about the background of this word and then bring it to how it is operated in this, right? See, Plato, the student of Socrates, wrote Republic book, 10 volumes, and keeping Socrates in the forefront. It's like a conversation between Socrates and others. So it is explained that there was a discussion between some wealthy aristocrat with the students of Socrates, brother of Plato. They were discussing, and Socrates asked this question: what do you consider to be the greatest blessing which you have reaped wealth? He was a rich aristocrat. So naturally, Socrates asked this question too. So then he said that wealth is a blessing because it enables him to generous and honest and just. So what Socrates did was he did not stop there. He kept on asking questions after question, questions after question, you know. And when he started asking this question, the aristocrat was losing his patience. Uh, and then he said, what is this? Why do you and others all drop down at once and ask silly questions? When will you stop it? But Socrates did not get scared. He continued to ask questions. And the aristocrat lost his temper. He was speaking, he was giving answers which were more poetic and idealistic. But when he was cornered, he spoke the heart. Just like when you are in and ask silly questions. When will you stop it? But Socrates did not get scared. He continued to ask questions. And the aristocrat lost his temper. He was speaking, he was giving answers which were more poetic and idealistic. But when he was cornered, he spoke the heart. Just like when you are interacting with people, you try to be as sophisticated as possible. But when you're cornered, your real self comes out. So then he said, listen, then he said, I proclaim that might is right and justice is the interest of the stronger. Very important to understand. The human psychology, when people try to talk about liberty, fraternity, justice, right? These are high sounding words. And to prove that they're better than the previous people or the 1,000 years ago, that falls very strongly when you see the statistics. Whether past, present, or future, the human psychology is to control. Therefore, I said, now here, that justice is the interest of the stronger. The different forms of the government make laws democratic, aristocratic, or autocratic. For what reason? For their respective interest. Hmm? So, therefore, it is important to understand. Plato also mentioned, when you talk about justice, because Gana Rajya, republic, is all about giving justice. So, Plato says this justice is not a morality not for men but for footmen. What kind of justice? Kindness, compassion, what they are talking about. He said it is a slave morality, not a hero morality. He said the real virtues of men are courage, which is called andria, and intelligence, phronesis. Right? He says the strong do what they can. He said the strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. And then he raises this question: what is justice? Shall we seek righteousness or shall we seek power? Is it better to be good or to be strong? So, these principles, what I just spoke about, these principles are a reality of human existence. Last week we were discussing about Jivo Jivasya Jivanam, right? The survival of the fittest. So what Plato wrote in Republic, he talked about these four things, right? Wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance or temperament. What is it? Wisdom, if you call wisdom in Sanskrit, is Vigyan, courage, Shaurya, just Nyaya, and modesty, temperance. And to create such system of governance, Socrates went one step ahead. He said, to rule the kingdom, what are the greatest obstacles to rule properly? He said, art and poetry. He said, art and poetry takes you away from the truth. Now, very interesting. What is interesting is Socrates, Plato himself were the philosopher. The philosophy also dwells with something which could exist like this. They're talking about what should be like. They talk less about statistics, more about abstract concept. And even though they're doing that, they are strongly feeling that art and poetry should be banned. Now, if you study carefully in all the Vedic literature also, there was a space created to art and artist people. They occupied very less space, very less space in human existence. Very less space in human existence, less space in human mind, less space in human intellect. If you study carefully, the so-called artists and writers, they have taken away the Indians far from the reality, the historical reality, the shastric reality, the justice reality. Far from it, right? So, in one sense, what he's saying is correct. But because again, if you study human existence, need refinement also. So the Sanatan Dharma explains there should be truth and there should also be poetic fiction, apparently, which is closer to truth also. And then in those times, he said both male and female guardian ought to receive the same education. I was sharing with somebody in the Vedic astrology. One of the whenever people come and argue you about how Indian society or any traditional society very patriarchal, abusing of the disadvantage, abusing of women folk. Now, when you go with your astrology to an astrologer, Jyotish Shastragya, what does he do? He doesn't care who you are, whether you're a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, man, woman. Because when they place the chart will decide based upon your Purva Samskara and your time of birth, what Varna you belong to. And if the 10th house is the house of work, in that house, in the male chart, there is more feminine energy. They are born in a male body, but the 10th house is the house of work. Right? In the 10th house of work, if there is no more feminine energy, you don't try to make them a Kshatriya. On the other hand, it's a female chart, right? A lady's chart, but there is a great energy. And you can see that all across. It is not decided based upon who biologically are. It is decided based upon what is sitting there and how to engage a personality like that. So, therefore, in one sense, giving education to both of them was a correct understanding because both people received education. The place of receiving education was different. If you read Dharmapal's book, this is the summary about schooling system in India operating in 1740, 1760, 1770. Which statistically the number of students of different communities going there, including the girl student, is described there. Okay, very interesting. But then again, you see here, Socrates is speaking nicely, but then it makes something apparently very challenging, very conflicting. He says human reproduction ought to be regulated by the state, and all things should be ignorant of their actual biological parents. So, this is the biggest difference between what the Indian rishis realized about Ganarajya and what the European, especially the Greek, conceived about the republic state. So, this republic state is almost like socialist only, that your human reproduction ought to be regulated by the state and offspring should be ignorant of their actual biological parents to create equality. There should not be any nepotism. There should not be any kind of partiality. It sounds good, you know was one famous spiritual teacher when he started his commune. No, in his commune, he made it same principle that the birth of the children is caused by a man and woman coming together. He said, just like a student chooses who can be his friend, whom he does not want to, he said, in my community also, he said, let the children decide who should be their parents. And they should be grown in a community without actually knowing who their parents are. But this doesn't work. In Ganarajya, it doesn't work. And in Republic state also, it would not work because universal principle is the same. Right. And then he explained, I'll come back to our Ganarajya. He says there are four constitutions, or systems of government. Democracy, oligarchy, democracy, and tyranny. Right? Either one of them, whether it is democracy, oligarchy, democracy, and tyranny, he said they are designed in such a way to control. Therefore, I do not accept any one of them. We'll not get into the details. Democracy is basically, you know, controlled by the aristocratic people. Oligarchy is rich, wealthy people. Democracy is all of us we know. And then democracy eventually leads to, the tyranny, lawlessness. And that's a sad part. As we celebrate Republic Day, we see that how, one of the greatest tragedy of human existence, and especially for India, when we study very systematically, we are not talking about monarchy, we are not talking about socialism, we are only talking what is not working. A democracy, it's not a very workable model. Eventually, democracy does not see meritocracy. Democracy only sees vote bank politics. If your number is great, I will make a policy which will suit the people with larger number, so that they can eventually vote. It will create a pandemic situation. So this is how the different system function. Then during the surge of Christianity, right, there was some kind of free thinking in the Greek world. Not all the time, Socrates was given hemlock to drink. He decided to drink and die, right? But when Christianity came to the forefront, then what happened? Now the concept of critical thinking disappeared. If you criticize anything which is controlled by a state, which is basically controlled by the church, so if you found something which was not supporting the biblical thought process, and you speak about it without even speaking anything wrong about Bible, if it is contradictory, then that was a crime. So therefore the concept of free speech was unfortunately squashed. People like Bruno and Galileo, Bruno was burned to death because he spoke something which was not according to what the Bible said. So when systems became more powerful, they chose what to speak, how to speak, where to speak, whom to speak. There was censor in regards to what you believe, and there was censor in regards to what you speak. It is not Gana Rajya, it is Guna. Guna means rope. It's a rope Rajya binding you, you know. So therefore, in those time, in the 14th century, 13th, 15th century, a robber was punished, no doubt. But even a robber was seen with certain compassion compared to somebody free thinkers. Those who were able to think differently from others, they were not tolerated at all. If you are an atheist, if you are speaking anything contradictory, you are stopped. And therefore the Western world came up with this whole philosophy of Renaissance in the 15th and 16th century, whether it is going against the Catholic Church, Protestant religion, or the romantic movement, the movement of the science, where they went to another extreme. You say anything, you speak anything, nobody can stop you. And what happened was, the most of the Indians, unfortunately, because of the education system what we've had, they somehow other superimpose the experiences of the Greeks and the Europeans and the biblical belt on our Shastras also. To say that even the Hindu scriptures are like this, even the Hindu methodology was like this, even the Hindu kingdoms were like this. I read few articles on this, right? And when the concept of free speech, freedom of speech came, so one is condemning Just like what the free speech movement condemned the Western faith-centric religion, and accepting the description given by the modern thinkers about free speech, the wholesale was adopted to Indian mind, right? Judging certain stories, certain episodes, certain scriptures from which lens, which psychology? The psychology of your upbringing in education system. So therefore, republic only became Ganarajya in regards to the language what you use. Just it is a name, but the substance was missing. I've got a lot of books here, right? Now, whether you take Mahabharata, whether you take Ramayana, or you take the legal and constitutional history of India, one famous justice, Rama Joyce, he wrote this book. Or you take, for that matter, Chanakya's Arthashastra. Or you go to the Bhagavatam, for that matter, even up to the 10th canto, right? What do you find? There was a great balance between freedom and responsibility. There was a great balance between power and sensitivity. There was great balance between aristocracy and socialism. Why? Because it was based on the principle of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Simple example. Now, one of the most important example we celebrate, and we should, in 1950, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel bringing the 540 states, the kingly state, not one or two, 540 states together and making undivided country was not a small job. Everybody had their opinion, right? They had their kingdom and they had controlled by the Britishers. Now they're about to be free. So it would create recklessness of the highest order. Right? So therefore what Patelji did, he brought them together. That's a great thing what happened. But we should also know this 540 kingdom which were existed, they represent the great dynamics of freedom. Huh? It was not the country was very divisive. The country was full of diversity. And one of the way where the country grows in diversity, and only diversity gives rise to freedom of speech, which is responsible in nature. Because when you study the native Adivasi culture, the foundation will be same, but the application will be different compared to somebody living in the mainstream, right? A Brahmanical community, a Kshatriya community, a Vaishya community, a Shudra community, and then the tribal community, right? So therefore, having small rulers, political freedom, they were not separate countries. They were separate divisions accepting the cultural supremacy of Bharat. No? Just like in the Mahabharata, we go back. What was the difference between Jarasandha's way of ruling India? He wanted to rule, Chakravarti wanted to be Chakravarti, and Yudhishthira Maharaj's Chakravartiship. Yudhishthira Maharaj's Chakravartiship was, centralized inspiration and decentralized control. And Jarasandha's principle was centralized suffocation and centralized control. He wanted to merge all the kingdom together, destroying their own special, shade of reality. He captured all the kings and he wanted to bali chada. He wanted to give them bali to Kal Bhairav so that he becomes a Chakravarti Samrat. Therefore, while speaking the disadvantage of 540 royalty, we should also understand there were many advantages of that. Many people must be knowing of this blockchain. The blockchain technology is there to stay, and it is there and they challenge the biggest controlling, companies. They control everything. That will break down, because small is beautiful. When small is beautiful, then the freedom of speech is responsible. Hmm? And when the freedom of speech is responsible, then what does it do? It gives you the choice to choose what you want to do. But what you want to do, if it is not according to the mainstream, you don't question the mainstream, but you question your reality to the mainstream. Right? Last week we were discussing about a film director calling that marriage is hell and divorce is heaven. Marriages are made in hell and divorces are made in heaven. Let us celebrate divorce with Sangit Sabha. Our cruel ancestors imposed upon us something which is not good for us. Right? So this freedom of speech, what is it? Is a disruptive. It is destructive. It is not a legacy creator. So then somebody may ask this question, oh, that means what? People are suffocating in the marriage, they're not able to stay, or they're supposed to stay there by force? Not at all. I can show you hundreds of quotes in certain Samhitas also and Chanakya Artha Shastra. If somebody wanted to separate 2500 years ago, before that also this is written, but they were doing it in a way which was sensitive to their surrounding. Your personal choice did not destroy the tradition of the community. And the tradition of the community did not question your responsible decision to move away from something which was mainstream. Why? Because we have to understand one of the most important difference of republic and Ganarajya. The Ganarajya was ruled by dharmic principle, and republic was ruled by faith principles. And faith principles always want to make things centralized, and a dharmic principle always want to make things based upon decentralized limitless diversity what the universe offers. Therefore it is but natural that there was a greater scope for the freedom of speech, to such an extent, if I am from the kingdom of Vijayanagar and I feel that what I believe in something is not being implemented here, I would move to another kingdom, go to Maratha kingdom, go to Chola's kingdom, go to Chalakya's kingdom. I could go anywhere and everywhere. I had the opportunity to move out. Right? It was not based upon faith. Faith was very private. Dharma was in the forefront, because dharma is for the external world, and faith is for an internal reality for an individual. Right? And therefore Krishna urged the Pandavas to create the system like a blockchain. Yudhishthira Maharaj is an inspirational Chakravarti. So when there is an inspirational Chakravarti, the freedom of speech is very sensitive, very responsible. You can go and speak to the king. You have questions, you could stand in front of the king in presence of the public, you'll ask the question, and it was the responsibility of the king to respond, not eliminate. Modern speech, the modern concept of freedom of speech is based upon consensus by the academia. They will decide what is freedom of speech. They will decide what is free thinking. You know, it is so strange. Somebody wrote recently, somebody spoke ill about Mahatma Gandhi. Right? Now, the point is the way they were treated, it is almost like making him as a prophet. Right? In the Islamic world, if you abuse, if you spill ill about the prophet, they'll kill you, they'll put you in jail. There is a law. It's against. In Pakistan they have that law, in Malaysia they have that law, many countries. If you speak something against the holy book, you'll be finished. In this country, in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, the Pandavas, Draupadi had the resources, facility, culture of asking question not only to Bhishma Dev, asking question to Krishna. She's asking, why Krishna you did not come to protect me? It was your responsibility. And you don't hear the Pandavas pouncing upon Draupadi to kill her for questioning Krishna. Neither god of the Mahabharata is throwing brimstones, hellfire on Draupadi, cursing her. No. Why? Because she has the right. Therefore, there was a concept of Nyaya Shastra which was existing. Like in the Abrahamic tradition, you cannot question the scripture. In the Vedic tradition, within the fold of the Vedas, forget Avedic, I'm not talking about non-Vedic philosopher. Within the Vedic philosophy, there are philosophers who are Gnostic in nature, but they are also called as rishis. We do not agree with them, but you not agreeing with them does not mean they should not exist. That doesn't matter whether they believe atheism, they believe theism. You cannot make them cease to exist. They will exist, they will debate, they will challenge, they will speak to you, right? And you have to accept them, not because you are suffocated or I need to please them. Right? In the modern world, you are suffocated by certain group of people, but you are forced to accept. This was not the condition with the Gnostic people. They flourished in the communities and they had completely different opinion than what you had as an astic person. Right? But you did not stop their growth because their differences in regards to their atheism was not slanderous of theistic philosophy. They did not slander the characteristics from the scripture. They did not choose, okay, I'm going to target this community people. Like we see recently, a girl, Tamil Nadu, she committed suicide because, you know, she was forced to be converted. The letter has come. Now, have you seen any left liberals sending a tweet? They talk about freedom of speech. Have you seen anything coming like that? The modern freedom of speech, which is controlled by certain systems, they become so shameless and free from guilt. The concept of justice does not exist in them. What does exist in them? It only what exists is I need to grow. I need to grow to such an extent. It's about my selfishness. So nyaya, either logic nyaya or nyaya, the justice nyaya does not exist. Right. Therefore, Gana is an interesting principle. What is Gana? Gana means integrated people, not disintegrated or merging people to one idea. For example, in a family, 7 people are there. They have the same surname. They might eat the same food. They sit on the table and do their puja. Or some people may not be part of the puja, but still they're sitting together. They are existing and flourishing even with their differences. There is no such thing as that you have to follow what I say. You have to believe what you say. See the Pandavas. Every person in the Pandava family were different, but they coexisted. So therefore, it is very important to understand I think it's in Kamba Ramayana or Tulsi Ramayana, when Vibhishan took over as the king, right? He has become the king now. And he comes to Lord Ramachandra because Lord Ramachandra did not go to attend his coronation because he had taken a vow that I will not enter the city for 14 years. Right? When he came, Vibhishan came to Lord Ramachandra. Lord Ramachandra said, my dear Vibhishan, you know what? He said, you have occupied the position of your brother, which he owned previously. He was sitting on the throne. Now you have become the king. But you have become the king of Lanka, but the systems have not changed. The systems are the same. What will happen? It is no time. You will also, Vibhishan eventually may not be like Ravana, but the methodology is Ravana. So therefore, you have to change your system. In that sense, when the constitution formers, right? It's a very interesting story. It's not a black and white story. The forming of a constitution. People should study, may not be studying constitution, but study the background, how it was formed. And how many times some people, kind of changed it, passed separate bill without touching the constitution, but like adding certain extra rules and regulation, right? So they said we do not want the colonized system, we want to have our own system. In 1950, the constitution was implemented. Now, if you study the Shastras or any common sense, the part of forming constitution, there are two things. One is the foundational principle, which becomes the guiding force for you to write a constitution. And what is that foundational principle? The foundational principle of your constitution would be based upon the limitless diversity of this country. And each unit of the diversity, like if you're a Maratha, or if you're a Punjabi, if you're a Gujarati, if you're a Keralite, if you're a Kannadiga, if you're a Konkani, you are not there to destroy Kannadigas at the cost of Tamil. You're not there to destroy Gujaratis at the cost of, you're not there to destroy Gujaratis, so that the Marathas can flourish. It is a question of helping each other to grow. And that is the foundational principle of Bhagavad Gita. And that was the foundational principle of the constitution. But slowly, 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 what happens? When the power is with people, and the power is there with the people who are running a democratic system, they start thinking, where will I get my vote from? And rather than thinking about the people's empowerment, they think about their power struggle to stay, as long as possible, you know, and then the compromise starts. The freedom of speech becomes partiality centric. If this happens, I will make a noise, but if this happens, I will not make the noise. No? If a cow killing happens, I will not make the noise. But you do something else, then immediately, oh my God, there is a problem with the freedom of speech. When you condemn the Hindu Devi Devatas in the movie, nobody will say anything. But if you speak something about others, immediately, some rebel happens. So when a system in the name of constitution becomes lopsided, one-sided, and people keep doing that, just like other day, a person whose daughter was raped, and he was given free. Legally, he was not proved that he was guilty, he was given bail. And the man who came out, he was harassing the very family he had abused. So what happened? The man had a limitation of his anger. He kept on being submissive, submissive, submissive. Right? It is like in the Mahabharata, Bhima was made to tolerate beyond his capacity. Bhima was made to tolerate beyond his capacity and something which is not supposed to be tolerated. Many times, one time, two times, three times, four times. And when he got that opportunity, we know the story of Kichak. And what did Bhima do with him? All the anger, all the frustration, all the injustice, all the closing of your eyes, which he was forced to do, he just took all his anger on Kichak. And Kichak was pulverized. he was made into a ball. All right. So what this man did? He shot him dead. The rapist of his daughter, usko gole se bhoon dala, and he came to the police. Now he took the justice in his hand. Wrong legally. It's a crime. No doubt it's a crime. Nobody should do that. But at the same time, the system should not take people's patience such an extent and mistreat them in the name of, or it doesn't matter, why should we do that? We have a mandate to only support some people, right? We have a mandate to only speak ill about Sanatan Dharma. We have a mandate to speak about the characters of Ramayana. This is the only scripture which allows the seeker to make even Parabrahma stand on the witness box. And you are allowed to ask him questions. Therefore, it is called as Brahma Jigyasa, Dharma Jigyasa. Right? I'll conclude with this. In the Bhagavatam, one Brahmana, he lost his son repeatedly again and again. Many stories are like that. He came when Ugrasen Maharaj was ruling. He came there and he blasted Krishna Bam for their inefficiency in protecting his child who was dying every time the child was born. You think Krishna cut off his head? You think Krishna cursed him? No, he had the right to speak his mind. Right? He was not punished, he was not tortured. And like that, there are hundreds of stories, right, where a citizen was empowered to such an extent, the society, the government, the community, their goal was to empower people, make people more stronger than the state. That is an underlying principle given by Chanakya Pandit. He said, when the state becomes more powerful than the people, then the state becomes like Banasur only, causing violence towards others. But if the state becomes like Yudhishthir, then what does it do? It empowers people to such an extent, then your minister, your bureaucrats, everybody knows, oh, I should be careful. I am responsible to these many people. I am supposed to make laws which are favorable to all those who are potential to grow in life and contribute more and more. So therefore, it's a vast subject. It's a vast subject, but we discuss a little foundational principle of this, and we'll stop here. If you have any question, we can take.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Well understood that our traditions have been very forward thinking and they encourage freedom of speech, which we saw on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Arjuna had many questions which he asked Lord Krishna. We have questions over here also. We would request Deviji to please ask a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the voice was breaking, so I was requesting to speak on that. So it's good, Prabhuji. So first 20 minutes it was breaking a lot. So that is the
Nobody
reason.
told me. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, Prabhuji. So I don't have a question so far, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Thank you. Deviji, can you please check your internet connection because we did not have any kind of interruption in the audio streaming. Thank you. Jitendraji, can you please ask your question?
Yes, sir. In the Arjuna, whether he is confused or and in the battlefield when Arjuna do uh, do battle, so is he confused or something like?
Where? In the battlefield?
Yes.
Yeah, he was confused because his relationship was coming in the forefront. There was a duty, there was dharma, and there is sambandha. So his sambandha, which was not affecting his dharma up until now, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, his dharma was affecting his relationship. And therefore, he was confused, conflict. What should I do now? Because if I practice dharma, my relationship with my grandfather, my teacher, will be in challenge, in difficulty. And if I focus on relationship, then my dharma and my representation of establishing Dharma Rajya, assisting Krishna, will be questioned. So confusion or conflict always arises when you have to deal with your own people.
No, so
It,
dharma is Prabhuji, dharma is a prarabdha karma here.
no, dharma is not prarabdha karma. Dharma is the universal law for everybody. Dharma is duty. Dharma is governance. Dharma is balance. Karma is different. The confusion arose only because the circumstantial reality of dealing with relatives or establishing laws. If you're a justice, you can give death penalty if they are not part of your family, they are not your relatives. But you realize one of your family member, one of your relatives has acted against the nation interest or murdered somebody, and that person happened to be done many good things to you. Then what happens? Then that gives rise to conflict. If you're a good person, it gives rise to conflict. If you're a shameless person, you said, who cares justice? It's my relatives, I will release them. No, like the modern politicians, for them it is the family first, then comes Rashtra. Like Dhritarashtra had no confusion. He was very clear. I want my son to rule. Afterwards, I will see my nation. But for Yudhishthira Maharaj and Pandavas, it is about the dharma which they have to establish. And to establish dharma, the Bhishmadev and Dronacharya were causing pain to them because they had great affection for them. That is Gita. Gita is not spoken to kill Duryodhan. Gita is spoken to Arjun not to break relationship with Bhishmadev, but at the same time, remove him from the battlefield. Krishna did not teach hatred to the Pandavas about Bhishma Drona. Understand?
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. We'd like to invite questions. You can tap on the mic icon and we will pull you into the conversation. Prabhuji, you've been talking about the left liberal. They seem to be very educated, very highly placed in academia. Somehow they are the first to, bring out the limitations of a traditional past. Is it because they don't have enough evidence of our scriptures, our wisdom text? What provokes them to belittle our tradition?
Because they're paid for it. One of the main reason. They're paid when people are like how in the Mahabharata, Dronacharya made this very clear. Kripacharya made it very clear. He said, what, we can't stand by you because we are purchased by Duryodhan. And whoever is purchased, he cannot speak in regards to truth. He can only speak in regards to the person who is purchased. This is 5,000 years ago, they said. So therefore, if it is, yeah, you can understand when people are confused. There are a lot of people who are confused about it. There are a lot of people who did not get the personal benefit. Something happened. They were wrong understanding. Therefore, they spoke. But there are a lot of people who speak this because they have a conscious systematic agenda. Therefore, they speak. And again, the education system, like when the Britishers came to India, there, if you read Max Muller, if you read some of the Christian priest, it was very clear. What is it? What was very clear? That I want to show my religion is superior. So in the Sanatan Dharma, the concept of faith superiority does not come. What you practice, it doesn't matter whether it is superior or inferior. The discussion would never happen based on faith. Nobody would debate whether Vishnu is supreme, Shiva is supreme, Ganapati is supreme. That is a personal matter. They would discuss Vedanta, they would discuss Veda philosophy, they would discuss Dharmic. The conflict would happen, the war would happen not because of faith, the war would happen because of Dharma and Adharma. So we have to understand the whole concept, how Dharma operates as against Shraddha.
Sir, please
Like as I said,
speaking
in
in
Varnashram Dharma, if you see carefully, if you see in Varnashram Dharma, the Varna The Greek philosophers spoke that whoever is qualified for whatever they are, they should be encouraged to do that. As simple as that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, if we have to do something, to basically make them believe that what they're saying is not true, what is it that you suggest that we should do?
Therefore, education, educating them.
Okay.
Education.
Okay, thank you.
Not beating them, or just strong educational system, because it's logical. I was recently in one village. This village is a village of Adivasi people, and we had gone, and this lady Yashodamai, she had 50 Adivasi girls, and she goes to all of these Adivasi villages where people got converted to Christianity. And eventually, because they are converted to Christianity, they stop worshipping their ancestral deities. Even Adivasis do that. And after 1 or 2 years, they realize something going wrong. Then they ask people there, they are called as Bhagats. They tell the Bhagat, Are, can you do this puja? The Bhagat say, Are, you have become Christian, how can you do this puja? No, please do that. Because simple, one of the stupidest thing people, now how can Jesus, he's not a God, he's a teacher, who was relevant to the people 2500 years ago in Israel, right? How can he be part of your tradition in a village of Maharashtra? We have no connection only. They are more connected to their village deity, which has been giving them resources. They've connected, so they come back. So there is no. This lady doesn't do, like official. Chalo, हम लोग उनको reconvert करते हैं. There is no question of reconverting, because they were never. The conversion happened very superficially. They just discovered themselves, and they all come together. They celebrate. They worship Tulsi. They chant Hanuman Chalisa, and they're given the feast, and they do certain samskaras with them, without speaking anything. Because how long can you do something which is not real and substantial?
Prabhuji, hello. So,
Yes.
yeah, Prabhuji, one more thing I need to ask that, the Krishna is a Chaitanya. Means Chaitanya means when we are not the I ego, there is no I ego. When there is no I ego, there is Chaitanya.
What is your question?
So means कृष्ण चैतन्य मतलब ये कि वो चैतन्य ही है, तब तब वही होगा, मतलब वही रहता है जब हम नहीं रहते, मतलब जो आई है वो ईगो नहीं होगा.
This philosophy, what we are discussing now, these are all Vedantic concepts.
Okay.
Doesn't fit into today's discussion. First you understand the principle of Dharma. Vedanta philosophy comes afterwards. Dharma is a very simple to understand, and on top of that, because even if you understand you don't exist, and even if that is the truth, can you operate on that platform in your house, in your office, in your surrounding? No, you have to operate on the basis of I exist, and everything what around me exists till your last breath. Therefore, philosophy should be for life. Life cannot be for philosophy. जीवन किसके लिए है? जीवन तत्व दर्शन के लिए नहीं होता. तत्व दर्शन जीवन होता है. You should be able to apply that. Can you apply that? No, I don't exist. Can you apply here today at this stage? No. You need to have an identity when you travel to nowadays. You have to have vaccination certificate. ये सब करते करते इसलिए इसको समझने के लिए धर्म की आवश्यकता है. When you live in a cave, when you are doing nothing but pure philosophy, then all this thing will matter. Up until now, you don't need that. Okay. Hello.
जी प्रभुजी.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take one
Shilaji,
last question.
ask your question. Yeah. Shilaji, would you like to ask your question?
Okay.
Okay, Prabhuji, I don't think we have any more questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I will stop.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well understood that freedom of speech needs to be sensitive, respectful, and aligned to our dharmic principles. We wish everybody a happy Republic Day, and we will meet again next Tuesday at the same time on Twitter. Thank you. Hare Krishna.